A Danish woman who was given indefinite leave to remain in the UK has been told she can't have UK citizenship. Inga Lockington has been speaking to PM. She told me why she came here in the first place.
I fell in love with an Englishman. And
that's where it began to go wrong.
Oh, no. You see, one of my Danish friends went over here to train as a nurse, and I came to visit her, and I met Tim, and it just sort of started from there.
What did you like about the UK? This was back in 1979 you moved here.
We married in 79, yes, in December 79.
And besides Tim, what else was nice about the UK?
It was just, to be here, and yes, it's fine, but I didn't come over because I was unhappy about Denmark. I had a lovely job in Denmark. I had a good, but when you want to be together, one of you have to go, and it was far better that I went over here than Tim going to Denmark. He had just finished his medical studies. He was going to be a doctor in the health service, which is his great commitment.
And in terms of your status, in 1979 you were given indefinite leave to remain.
I came over on the ferry boat with Tim. It was sort of our honeymoon, taking the ferry boat across, and met the immigration officer who rightly looked at passports and asked, how long time you're here for. And I just looked at him and said, well, for the rest of my life, and showed him my wedding certificate, and he joked a bit and smiled and, gave me a stamp that I could live here indefinitely, and I thought that was it.
So why are we talking today?
Well, because of Brexit and what's happened, I thought that I better start looking into what was going to happen. And I started a while back and looked into it. And then I realized when I got my last Danish passport that Denmark will now allow dual nationality. And Tim always said strongly that I married you for who you are, and I don't want you to give up being the person you are. Then I started to make a bit of contact with the Home Office and try to phone up, and got through a few times, and I said to somebody, I've got a stamp in my passport saying I could live here indefinitely. I hope that is still valid. And somebody said, no, when we leave for Brexit, everybody will have to reapply, and your stamp won't count for anything. Tim said, look, instead of hanging about and waiting, why don't you just get on with applying for citizenship?
And how did that go?
Well, I did all the things. I got all the enormous bit of paperwork you have to get together and information, and they want to have your 10 years of wage slips and whatever. How many days you've been out of the United Kingdom in the last 3 years and all this, and you put it in.
How much does all that cost, by the way?
Well, the application itself was $1,285, I think, or something, and then you pay money for them to look through your paperwork. Then you go a few days later to get your fingers printed, and I had to go to Colchester to get that done at the post office there. Fingerprint and eyes photographed and everything because of course I wanted to have a passport if I got the citizenship. After 3 months I got the response that it was a refusal.
What was that like?
Not very nice. You sort of read it and you think, that can't be true. And the silly little reason for refusal is so silly that because I didn't have a residency card, they couldn't believe that I was living permanently in the United Kingdom on the day I applied. You get all this information together, you pay all the money, and I suppose I'm lucky that I could afford to pay all the money. I will now have to pay for the appeal. You can't help thinking, what is that going to happen to other people who have maybe not got that pot of money ready to spend?
You mentioned you were a councillor. You were all of that for 19 years, and you were mayor of Ipswich, so you weren't exactly hiding from the authorities.
No, absolutely not.
Although you were a Liberal Democrat.
Yes, I certainly am a Liberal Democrat, and that's what I joined. I just so much wanted to be part of the country and do my bit, and you learn so much when you are an elected councillor. And I thought, well, if I can't fill in an application form, because other people have gone to solicitors, but that's another lot of money on top of everything. And it should not be that complicated.
The president of the Liberal Democrats, Sal Brinton's been talking about your situation, known you for 20 years,
Yes.
and talks about a hostile environment at work, disgraceful, first Windrush, now EU citizens. Do you make that comparison with Windrush yourself?
I certainly felt for the Windrush, and I know it will happen, because what is happening too is, I'm lucky I'm married to an English citizen or British citizen, but for others that's come over to work who are either married to fellow Europeans or not married and so on, I feel so sorry for the ones who come over here as children. There is a lot of hurt to people who actually love living here.
I see quotes from the Home Office today saying they'd be happy to discuss the various routes to citizenship available to you.
I would be happy to speak and see what they come up with, but as far as I know, I have used the option which was that when you're married to a British citizen, you need to have lived here for 3 years to apply, and I have been here for nearly 38.
As someone who, I guess, loves the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
is it frustrating that, to some extent, the United Kingdom doesn't seem to love you at the moment?
I think it's only the sort of Home Office way of doing things. The hostile environment is not from my residents, it's not from people of Ipswich. It is simply the way the Home Office work, and they need to look at their own application and their own forms to be sure they actually fit for human beings and not just a computer.
That's Inga Lockington.